nigger woman out front and the man behind and scared. This is a perfect situation for sound sleep and economics. This is what they said, that once they completed this process, we can sleep soundly now. We don't have to stand over them with the whip. You know, we don't have to stand over them anymore and make them do. We've set in motion where they're going to do it already. See, the female, the manifestation, the womb manifestation, she's going to do our work for us now. Before the breaking process, we had to be alertly on guard at all times. Now we can sleep soundly. For out of frozen fear, his woman stands guard for us. See, the black woman stands guard. See, she the one keeps this system going, and yet she benefits the least. she benefits the least. She's working, she's toiling, her talents and gifts. Everywhere you see her, she's busy doing for others. But then when it comes time to use those same talents and gifts for her and her offspring, she's too tired. You know, we're tired. Ain't been sucked dry of all our gifts, okay? See, and this is what they wanted. Now we can sleep soundly, for out of frozen fear, his woman stands guard for us. He cannot get past her infant slave process. He is a good tool, now ready to be tied to the horse at a tender age. They liken this process to the same process as if you broke a horse, animal breaking, animal breeding. This is, you know, how they figure, like, well, if you can do it with animals, you can do it with the human animal. So this is how they came up with this concept. It says by the time a nigger boy reaches the age of 16, he is soundly broken in and ready for life and efficient work and the reproduction of a unit of good labor force. So their whole agenda was to make sure that this cycle was perpetuated so that they would have a perpetual force of labor that would obediently do everything that they wanted them to do. So this is very interesting. You know, this is very interesting that someone would come up with this information.
Oh, it's absolute apartheid today in Chicago.
The issue is more than just money. It's also an issue of control and curriculum and what type of African adults are you trying to produce within that school system. I was in the Intelligent and Gifted Children's program. I went to Cornell University Preparatory. I was on welfare, Head Start, free lunch, free breakfast, forced busing for integration. Every single government program ever created, I have been participating.
Cover of Newsweek magazine, it must have worked.
That's not the point, because I talked about white people. That was why I was on the cover. They were not celebrating my academic victories.
Your point is made.
Right. So my point becomes, Phil, that how you design those programs. In all of the programs that I attended, all of the education that I had, college, public, and otherwise, nobody ever told me that I was an African woman. Nobody ever told me what the history of African people were. Nobody ever told me that America is business, and without business you will have nothing and be nothing. And nobody ever told me how to organize business so that I would be able to develop institutions in my own community. So now the sincerity of all of the programs and all of the education has to be questioned, indicted, and convicted, because the bottom line is that America is not and has never tried to produce African adults who are functional, self-sufficient, who understand their politics, their economics, and their relationship to the world politics and the world economics.
People and to talk about the issues that we are facing. I decided to entitle my remarks, "The Noose, the Swastika, and the Burning Cross." The noose, the swastika, and the burning cross. I have been talking about racism, white supremacy for the last, I hate to say it, 37 years. And it has been interesting to me because many people, many of my colleagues in psychiatry have said racism was a part of the past. And black people do not have to talk about racism anymore. And why is that? Dr. Francis Welsing continuing to beat on the drum about racism, white supremacy. So even though it is an evil and an injustice to see hanging nooses, I'm glad that they are appearing, because it is an opportunity for us to get oriented. You see, those of us who were hoping that the problem had disappeared. Do you see, but if a problem is not solved, it continues to resurface. Do you see, so we are not only seeing Jena, Louisiana, we are also seeing nooses being hung everywhere. And we are also seeing an individual who recently won the Nobel Prize, James Watson, do you see, of great scientific fame, come out and openly state that black people are genetically inferior in terms of intelligence compared to white people. And I'm happy about that. Do you see, now when he was confronted, he said he didn't know why those words came out of his mouth. I need to invite him to my office. Because it wasn't long ago, although it's been decades ago, that I debated another Nobel Prize laureate, Dr. William Shockley, the person who won the Nobel Prize for inventing the transistor. And he was going around in the 1970s talking about black people were genetically inferior compared to white people. But I had written a paper that I presented in 1970 at the National Medical Association, because then some of my colleagues were talking about racism. And I had written a paper talking about why do people who classify themselves as white have to demean and degrade black people's genetics. And that paper was entitled The Crest Theory of Color Confrontation and Racism, White Supremacy.
An African womb, does it not stand to reason that you respect, honor, love, and protect that particular species? And so what happens is, if African men take their definitions from a system that is dominated by white supremacy, racism, and capitalism, you will never be able to relate to an African woman. But what about the African women? Because African women make the same mistake. African women cannot take their definition of womanhood from a white feminist movement that is supposed to
leadership and the authority of the black man is a direct cause of the breakdown in our black family structure. Now, of course, there are many black people who consider those fighting words because as black women, we have never been subject to the kind of examination that our men have been subject to since we have been here. We have been somewhat protected and shielded from any kind of critiquing about our personal behavior, whereas our men have always been up for examination. The book is not an attack on black women. I have never said that all black women do everything that I list in my book. None of us have lived long enough to do everything that I list in the book, but most of us do some of the things that I have listed in my book. And I do say that it is not because of generalizations that we are all victimized by some of the negative patterns of behavior in the book, but the book just represents our collective contribution. This is some of everything that we have done, or that we do daily, that contributes to the breakup of our relationship, the destruction of our man, and the failure of our children to be able to function. They did not tell us that all of that, being my own person and I'm independent, would lead to separation, loneliness, celibacy, and lesbianism. They didn't tell us that if you give up the man, you're going to take one of these things and it's worse and it will destroy your nation. They didn't give us that.
Of labor that would obediently do everything that they wanted them to do. So this is very interesting. You know, this is very interesting that someone would come up with this information, you know. Continuing through the breaking of uncivilized savage niggers by throwing the nigger female savage into a frozen psychological state of independence, by killing off the protective male image, by creating a submissive dependent mind of the nigger male savage, we have created a orbiting cycle that turns in its own axis forever, unless a phenomenon occurs and reshifts the positions of the female savages. We show what we mean by example. Take the case of the 2 economic slave units and examine them closely. So what they're going to tell you now is about the Negro marriage unit. They say we breed 2 nigger males with 2 nigger females. Then we take the nigger males from them and keep them moving and working. Okay, they've divided them. Say the one nigger female bear a nigger female and the other bears a nigger male. So she's children now. One a female, one a male. Both nigger females being without the influence of the nigger image, frozen with the independent psychology, will raise their offspring into reverse positions. So what you're seeing is how the imbalance was set in place. And it's perpetuated.
My man and my psychological strength, emotional depth, and my historical understanding makes me know that the natural thing, the life-giving thing for me to do is to take an African
And as long as we don't understand we're dealing with a system, every week we just complain another black man has been shot, another black man has been killed. You said, oh, 10 over there, 3 over there. Oh, well, let's add up the statistics and somebody will run and complain about it. But if it's happening over and over again, that implies intentionality. And if the system is about white genetic survival, who is the enemy of the state? No, the black man.
That information. They made us think that it was some kind of glorified position to brag about the fact that I got my own job, my own credit card, my own car, so I don't need no man. I don't even know how we got that mixed up. Ain't none of that got nothing to do with being with no man. We have some serious relationship problems that nobody has been able to address us on because everybody wants to pretend that this is not going on. Over 60% of our women are single, widowed, separated, or divorced. They don't have a man. I just came out of Florida and they got a housing complex that the Urban League built, which is a black organization that is for women and children only. They say they don't allow any men in there. I didn't have time to deal with it, but I talked about them real bad. That's the silliest program I've ever heard of. You know the women that had men if they got a bunch of children. They need fathers. They need protection. We hear about the drug problem that we have in our projects across the country. It's one of the major places that we have a drug problem. We talk about the great strength that we have as black women. Well, the welfare department don't rent government apartments to single black men.
Meaning, hey, they might come kill him any day. We can't, rely on him. They may kill him any day. We really have to be it. We've got to really just put our independency upon ourselves. Don't expect him to be around for you. The one with the female offspring would teach her to be like herself, independent and negotiable. Interesting. We negotiate with her, through her, by her, and negotiate her at will. That's what they say. We negotiate with her, through her, by her, and negotiate her at will. The one with the nigger male offspring, she being frozen with a subconscious fear for his life, will raise him to be mentally dependent and weak, but physically strong. In other words, body over mind. What they tell you, mind over matter, well, okay, they did the reverse. Body over mind. Whole life is going to be spent being physically strong, the Mike Tyson type. If you look at Mike Tyson, he looks very physically intimidating, doesn't he? But then when you listen to him, then you can see that the mind is the true power. So someone who wants to manipulate him, all they have to do is capture his mind, and he's going to use his physical body to do whatever he wants. So what is the true force? Is it your being physically strong or mentally strong? Mentally strong is the true tool, okay?
A meaningful conversation about this system of mass incarceration in the United States, a system that has decimated so many of our communities, destroyed so many families, and literally turned back the clock on racial progress in the United States. It seems fitting that this dialogue would be taking place during Black History Month, a time when many Americans pause to consider, if only briefly, our nation's racial history, our racial present, and our collective future. And this year marks the 150th anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation. And so it seems more than appropriate to reflect on the meaning of that proclamation, indeed the meaning of emancipation in this era of mass incarceration. And this year also marks the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington. 50 years have passed since Dr. King delivered his soaring "I have a dream" speech. I have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. And so in reflecting on where we stand today, 150 years after the Emancipation Proclamation and 50 years after the March on Washington, I'm going to take Martin Luther King Jr.'s advice and tell it straight. As Dr. King put it quite bluntly, just months before his death, after the civil rights victories had already been won, after the civil rights bills had already been passed, he said, quote, "I do not see how we will ever solve the turbulent problem of race confronting our nation until there is an honest confrontation with it and a willing search for the truth and a willingness to admit the truth when we discover it." And so in that vein, I'm going to do my best to tell the truth, the whole truth about in America today. It is a truth that many Americans will deny, just as they were eager to deny the truth about slavery and Jim Crow in their days.